Don't come to the wedding, just watch it on Livestream. No phone call, no explanation, just one line and a link, as if I were some distant cousin, not the person paying for the entire event. It wasn't just the exclusion, it was the convenience of it, like my absence was the easiest solution. I stared at my screen, frozen. My hands lay still on the desk, paralyzed by disbelief. One tab over, the bank confirmation page was still open, $50,000 transferred just an hour ago. I had clicked confirm without hesitation, just like I had for every other wedding expense, venue deposit, catering installments, even the ivory foil invitations Sabine claimed were timeless. And now I didn't even get a seat. I didn't want to cry, not because I thought it made me weak, but because they didn't deserve the salt of my tears. I leaned back in my chair, the leather creaking softly. It sounded like something cracking. Maybe it was me. The kitchen still carried the faint smell of burnt toast from a breakfast I never finished. On speakerphone, my mom's voice echoed from earlier, her last words lingering. "Let the bride decide. You're not the one getting married." How many times had I heard that line lately? Every time I voiced a concern, every time I questioned a cost. And Marina, with that syrupy, practiced calm, had dismissed me. Just stay in your lane, okay? Apparently, my lane was funding her fantasy. There was a time when family felt like belonging. Now it felt like obligation. I got up and wandered to the fridge, my eyes scanning the familiar clutter. Grocery lists, old magnets, a faded recipe card from Dad. All remnants of a life where I used to feel included. I picked up my iPad and opened the group chat. Marina had just shared a photo album from the engagement brunch. 17 photos. I appeared in only 2. One was a blurry shot of me pouring champagne, my face mid-motion and out of focus. The other? Just my shoulder, cropped out behind Marina's designer jumpsuit. The caption? So grateful to everyone who made this moment so special. No mention, no tag, just a shadow in the background. I zoomed in until the pixels blurred. Even the shadows looked indifferent. Then came a text from Sabine. "Thanks again for covering the photographer balance, Foya. The photos turned out beautiful." Beautiful. Right. Thank you for erasing me. With style. I closed the iPad gently, not out of anger, but with finality. I stepped outside onto the patio and sank into Dad's old wicker chair, the one he refinished 5 years ago. A breeze stirred the wind chimes, the same ones Marina once called tacky. But I liked them. They made noise even when no one was paying attention. I sat there for a long while, wine untouched, cardigan wrapped around me like armor. Something shifted in the silence, not a scream, not a shatter, just a thread pulled loose. Inside, the house lights flickered as if unsure whether to stay on. But me? I was certain. They wanted peace. They wanted silence. They were about to get both. They didn't even bother to hide it this time. The digital photo album dropped in our group chat right at 8 p.m., 17 perfectly curated snapshots from Marina's engagement brunch, sparkling mimosas, silk dresses, sunlight glinting off polished glass. A picture-perfect fantasy. And me? I was in 2 frames. One where I was mid-pour, champagne bottle tilted, my face a blurred afterthought. The other? Just my shoulder, cropped behind Marina's designer jumpsuit like a forgotten extra. A ghost in a family portrait. I zoomed in, not because I expected to find anything new, but because I needed the sting. Like pressing on a bruise just to feel something. The caption read, "So grateful to everyone who made this moment so special." I stared at it until the words lost meaning. Then came a private message from Sabine. "Thanks again for covering the photographer, rec plus payment. The pictures turned out beautiful." I didn't respond. What was there to say? Thank you for erasing me with style? I set the iPad down carefully, not because it was fragile, but because I wasn't going to be. The porch was calling me. The air outside was warm for late spring in D.C., but a soft breeze teased the hedges into a quiet applause. I slid open the patio door and settled into Dad's wicker chair, the one that creaked just enough to sound honest. My wine glass sat untouched beside me, deep red, full-bodied, like a heartbeat I didn't want to feel. The silence stretched thick around me, heavy like velvet. Why do I feel like I should apologize for showing up? I whispered it into the breeze, not to get an answer, but just to hear my own voice again. Inside, the kitchen light buzzed softly. My laptop screen had gone black, a quiet tomb for $70,000 worth of receipts, venue, catering, napkins, even valet. All of it charged to my account, all credited to someone else's dream. They never asked if I wanted to help, they just assumed. And maybe that's my fault. For never asking to be thanked. For staying in the shadows I was too busy lighting for everyone else. I stayed out on the patio until the wine went warm and the mosquitoes arrived. Above me, the sky was a canvas of deep blues, stars smeared across it like careless thumbprints. And I realized something. Stars only show when it's dark enough. Maybe that's what I'd been waiting for all along. Later, I climbed the stairs slowly, every step a quiet negotiation between grief and clarity. I settled into my office chair, turned on the desk lamp, and opened the wedding spreadsheet. Each line item stared back like a scar I'd memorized: Sabine's premium rate, the 4-tier cake, the embroidered napkins, the floral cloud ceiling. All carefully chosen, all paid for. I rubbed the bridge of my nose, a habit more than a relief, when my phone lit up. "Mom," I answered. "Hey," I said, voice flat as stone. She sighed on the other end. "Just checking in. How are you holding up?" A trap disguised as concern. "I heard Marina's been a little tense," she added. "Tense," I echoed. "Sure, let's call it that." She didn't catch the sarcasm. "You've always been the steady one," she said. "Logical, independent. Maybe now's the time to let Marina shine. You've had your moment. This is hers." And there it was, the lullaby of guilt, wrapped in diplomacy. "You're saying I should disappear so she can feel brighter?" I asked. "I'm saying, don't make this about you. Please, don't ruin this for her." Silence. Then she hung up before I could say another word. I sat there, not feeling defeated, just adjusted, like something inside me had clicked back into place. Then a new email appeared. Subject line, guest list finalized. I clicked it open. No greeting, no warmth, just, "After talking with Nathan's family, we've decided to keep the ceremony very small. Due to seating limits and sensitivities, it's best if you attend virtually. We'll send a link." At the bottom, in italics, "Don't take this the wrong way. LOL. I didn't blink, didn't breathe. There it was, the casual cruelty of people who mistake silence for surrender. I replied with 4 words. "Sure, enjoy your day." No punctuation, no emotion, just precision. I closed my laptop, poured the untouched wine down the sink, rinsed the glass, then climbed into bed. The ceiling fan whispered above me. And sleep didn't come, not because I was broken, but because I was finally awake. They had written me out. I was about to write myself in. They say silence keeps the peace, but what they never say is how it erodes you. Slowly, quietly, one polite nod at a time. The morning after the Livestream email, I woke up before the sun, not because I had to, but because I couldn't stay asleep. My mind replayed every detail of the night before like a film stuck on loop. The email, the nerve, the absence of a single thank you, the total ease with which they'd erased me from my own contributions. I showered, dressed, and stood at the kitchen sink, cradling a mug of black coffee like it might ground me. Outside, the street was still sleeping. A few porch lights twinkled in the distance, and my neighbor's dog yawned audibly through their open window. It was that kind of stillness where any movement felt disruptive. I didn't reach for my laptop or scroll through messages. Instead, I reached for something older, something raw, a yellow legal pad, and at the top I wrote a question I was terrified to answer. What do they actually see when they look at me? 2 columns, one labeled "What I Give," the other, "What I Get." Under "What I Give," time, money, patience, emotional labor, birthday planning, bill payments, silence. Under What I get: pressure, assumptions, dismissal, polite indifference, performative praise. It wasn't close, not even close. I stared at the list like it had outed me, not as the victim, but as the volunteer. When I finally did glance at my phone, it was like clockwork. Marina had posted a reel from the rehearsal dinner, elegant piano music, warm filters, her twirling beneath fairy lights like a rom-com heroine. My name? Not tagged. My face? Not present. Again. The caption: surrounded by the people who made this magic possible. Grateful? They were grateful for the decorations, not the decorator. Later that day, the group chat pinged. Sabine, huge thanks to our sponsor, Secret Angel. You know who you are. They meant me, but they didn't say my name, didn't even at me. I texted one word. Noted. A declaration, not a conversation. No reply. That afternoon, Noreen called. Her voice was softer than usual, as if wrapping bad news in a blanket. I know you didn't want updates, but Marina's been telling people you chose not to attend, that you asked to be left out. A pause. I didn't speak. She even joked Fazia always was a little dramatic. Dramatic, because I'd dared to feel hurt, because I wanted a seat at the table I built. Thanks for telling me, I said evenly. You okay? I'm done being okay. That night, I pulled out every vendor contract, labeled, tabbed, time-stamped, my name on every signature line, every invoice. I didn't feel proud. I felt proofed, armed, documented. I didn't cry, I didn't pace, I didn't scream. I clicked open a new draft in Gmail. Subject: immediate action required. To Sabine Events, The Rose Florist, Lux Sounds DJ, Marquee and more. Please consider this formal notice to place a temporary hold on all remaining payments associated with the wedding of Marina Salette and Nathan Carver, scheduled for June 3rd. Contracts linked to my name, Fazia Salette, are currently under financial review. Do not proceed with service until further notice. Questions can be directed to this email. Thank you for your understanding. Send. Not revenge, not even anger, just reclamation, just boundary, just finally seeing myself worthy of the same clarity I gave everyone else. You can give without being seen. You can serve without being valued. But one day, if you're lucky, you realize silence is not kindness. It's complicity. The morning after my email to the vendors, I didn't check for replies. I didn't need to. It was out there now. The first stone tossed into the still water they had taken for granted. I brewed tea instead of coffee, softer, calmer, not because I felt at peace, but because I was no longer trying to be palatable. By noon, Sabine called. I let it ring. Then the florist emailed. Subject: urgent clarification request. I archived it. The DJ left a voicemail. Just touching base, didn't realize there were changes. There were. There would be more. At 4 p.m., Marina texted, "Can we talk?" No apology, no context, just a dangling olive branch with no leaves on it. I didn't reply. Instead, I went for a walk. A long one. There's something therapeutic about walking without a destination, the act of movement without expectation. It reminded me of childhood evenings after arguments where I'd slip out of the house and let my footsteps muffle the noise I couldn't unhear. Now, older, those steps didn't lead me away from pain, they led me toward clarity. That evening, Noreen dropped by unannounced. She didn't come with questions or condolences, just takeout and the kind of silence that feels safe. "You doing okay?" she asked finally, unwrapping a sandwich. I nodded. Better than I should be. She tilted her head. "You look different." I feel different. We ate in near silence. The TV played softly in the background, some documentary about wolves. I watched the alpha female on screen, how she didn't bark or bite to lead, just walked with quiet certainty and the others followed. Maybe leadership didn't always look like command. Maybe it just looked like boundaries. Around 9:30, I checked my email again. There it was. A message from Marina. Subject: please just read this. I know you're mad. I don't blame you. I didn't mean for it to come off like that. The live stream thing. It wasn't my idea. Nathan thought it would be easier, less drama, less risk of conflict, but I should have said no. I should have fought for you. You've always been the strong one, the provider, the one who didn't need anything back. I guess I just assumed you were okay with that you didn't need to be seen. But I was wrong. I miss you. Please come tomorrow. Just tell me what to fix. I'll do it. I'll make the speech. I'll tell them everything you did. Just don't sit this one out. Please. I read it twice. A third time. Then I closed it. Not because it wasn't what I'd always wanted to hear, but because it had come only after the silence stopped serving her. Forgiveness is a door, not a doormat, and I wasn't ready to open it. The next morning, I went to the bank in person. Carlos, the branch manager, greeted me with a mix of surprise and respect. "We finalized the hold, Miss Salette," he said. "No vendors will be paid unless you release those funds." I smiled. "Thank you. Can you also prepare a cancellation document?" I wanted official. Legal language. Final. He raised an eyebrow. Understood. As he printed the papers, I noticed the small photo frame on his desk. A boy, maybe 10, with Carlos's dimples and a gap-toothed grin. I wondered if that child would grow up knowing boundaries from the start, knowing he could say no without guilt. By 11 a.m., I held the envelope in my hands, my name printed cleanly at the top, a letter not of rage, but of release. I walked directly to the venue. No entourage, no drama, just me. I asked to speak with Sabine. When she saw the envelope, her eyes dropped before her mouth could form a greeting. "Is this final?" she asked. I nodded. "Effective immediately. Please inform all vendors. My financial obligation ends here." "They'll want an explanation." "Then give them one. Or don't. I'm done giving everything." As I turned to leave, she reached for my arm. "Fazia, you were the backbone of this whole event." Funny how backbones only matter when they break. I walked out, not rushed, not triumphant, just whole. Some truths don't explode. They erode, quiet, grain by grain, until one day you're standing in a hollow version of your own life, wondering when the ground gave out beneath your feet. The day after I sent the hold request to the vendors, I took a walk through Zilker Park. The Austin sun was hot and honey-colored, but my chest felt cold. Families picnicked on the grass, joggers passed with earbuds and effortless strides, kids chased frisbees like the world owed them joy. I'd always liked this park, but today, even the wind felt like it was whispering, "You don't belong here." My phone buzzed, screen lighting up with a name I didn't expect. Uncle Ray. We hadn't spoken directly in months. He always played neutral, floating somewhere between detached wisdom and distant judgment. I hesitated, thumb hovering over the green icon. Then I picked up. "Zia," he said, using the name only old family members still used. "Can we talk? In person?" He suggested a diner off Burnett Road, the kind of place with checkered floors and coffee that tasted like regret. When I arrived, he was already there, stirring sugar into a half-empty cup. "Thanks for coming," he said. No small talk. "You said it was urgent," I replied, sliding into the booth. He exhaled slowly, looking older than I remembered. "Marina called me. She's panicked. Sabine called the florist and they won't move forward without your confirmation. She says the cake's on hold too." "That's right?" He squinted. "You know this is going to make people talk." "They already are." He nodded, then leaned forward. "Zia, you need to hear something, and not from Marina, not from your mother, from me." I waited. "When your father passed," he said slowly, "there was a lot of chaos around the estate. Legal stuff. Your mother insisted on handling it all herself, but she didn't tell you everything." My stomach tightened. "What do you mean?" He slid a folded piece of paper across the table. "That's the original asset division. Your dad left a note with it, said he wanted it split evenly. But the version filed in probate? Marina gets the house, the stocks. You got a modest trust." I opened the paper. My father's handwriting, faded ink, my name written in full. "Why are you showing me this now?" "Because you were meant to know. But they hid it. Figured you'd already made your own way. They figured you wouldn't ask." I couldn't breathe for a moment, not because of the money, but because of what it meant. The story they'd told, that I was strong, independent, didn't need much, wasn't just narrative, it was justification. "Your dad wasn't perfect," Ray added, "but he believed in fairness. He just didn't expect others to weaponize your success against you." I folded the paper and tucked it into my purse. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just felt still. That night I made tea and sat by the window. The city outside buzzed with weekend laughter and headlights, but I was somewhere else, somewhere older. I remembered being 13, overhearing Mom say, "Zia will be fine. She always is." Maybe that's when it started, when fine became the excuse to give me less. The next morning, I met with Carlos again at the bank. I showed him the document. He scanned it, brows tightening. "You planning to contest this?" he asked. "Eventually. But for now, I want to restructure the accounts, move the trust into a private fund, freeze any withdrawals linked to family accounts. I want autonomy." He nodded, understanding without judgment. By Monday, the ripple effect had turned tidal. Marina called 5 times, left messages, sent flowers. A handwritten card showed up on my doorstep. "Let's talk. Please, I didn't know." I believed the second sentence, not the first, but I didn't respond. Not yet. Instead, I emailed Sabine. "Please cancel all contracts tied to Fazia Salet. Funds have been withdrawn. Further inquiries can be directed to legal counsel." No drama, just documentation. And for the first time in years, I felt untouchable. Some betrayals scream, others whisper, hiding in plain sight until the damage is too deep to mend. The morning after the lawyer's letter was read, the house was so silent it felt staged, like a set abandoned mid-rehearsal. Even the usual hum of the fridge seemed to tiptoe. Marina didn't come down for breakfast. Mom lingered at the kitchen table, fingers circling the rim of her mug, her eyes not meeting mine. For once, she didn't speak first. It was like the air had thickened with the residue of our father's words, and no one knew how to scrub it clean. I poured coffee, sat across from her, and waited. "He was wrong," she said finally. No greeting, no warmth, just a brittle sentence dropped like a shard of glass between us. "Was he?" I kept my voice even, not giving her the satisfaction of a rise. She didn't answer, just stared into her cup like it might fill with a better past. I left her there and went upstairs. The study still smelled faintly of Dad's cologne and old leather. The file folder lay open on the desk, the lawyer's embossed letterhead catching the morning light. I read the page again, even though I had it memorized. Every word. To summarize, the remaining balance of my late father's estate would be placed in a protected trust. The executor, previously assumed to be Nathan's uncle, was now me. The release clause was simple. Funds would be dispersed not by merit of need or tradition, but by demonstration of respect, honesty, and acknowledgement of contribution. It was, as the attorney noted, a character test, not a charity. For years they had leaned on me, quietly, invisibly. My father's final act was to shine a light where they never expected one. My phone vibrated on the desk. "Marina," I answered. No greeting. "You set this up. You and Dad. That letter was theater. You wanted to humiliate me." "Dad set it up. I just read it." "You think this makes you righteous?" Her voice cracked. "It makes you cruel." "What does it make you?" Silence. I waited. She hung up. Later that afternoon, Noreen stopped by unannounced. She brought a paper bag with pastries and 2 bottled teas. Her way of saying, "I know you probably haven't eaten real food in 24 hours. "So?" she asked, once we were settled in the living room. I handed her the letter, watched her brow furrow, her eyes widen. "Your dad was meticulous and fair and strategic. He knew they'd never thank me, so he baked gratitude into the terms." Noreen nodded. So what now? I pulled out a notebook. Now, we test the system. Over the next 3 days, I didn't reach out to anyone. I didn't respond to group chats or stray texts asking about the lawyer. I watched, waited, listened. The silence was revealing. Mom kept pretending it hadn't happened, alternating between forced normalcy and veiled digs about Dad's uncharacteristic choices. Marina posted an Instagram story of a smiling brunch with the caption, "Not everything broken needs fixing." No mention of the wedding cancellation. No mention of the trust. Just curated brightness, like a highlight reel of denial. By day 5, the storm hit. Nathan's family called a meeting, this time not virtual. They requested my presence. "We'd like to clarify a few things," his mother said, her tone syrupy with undertones of steel. I agreed. We met at a downtown cafe, neutral territory. I arrived early, dressed in simple navy slacks, a cream blouse, and no jewelry. Polished, but not trying. The Carvers came in full force. Nathan, his parents, and his aunt, the financial advisor. "We were under the impression," she began, tapping a manicured nail against her tablet, "that Marina was the executor. You were misinformed. And that this trust stipulates something rather vague. Character is always vague until tested." She frowned. Nathan looked at me, tired, paler than usual. "Do you really want to split this family over pride?" I didn't smile. "Number. But I won't protect people from the consequences of how they treat others. That's not pride. That's dignity." His mother opened her mouth, closed it, then shifted tactics. "Marina is upset. Marina is entitled. There's a difference." The conversation ended soon after. Cordial, stiff, final. On my way out, I got a message from Noreen. Voice memo. "Saw Marina's new post. She's hosting a healing circle for women who've been gaslit by legacy trauma. I think she means you." I laughed, really laughed. By day 7, the public unraveling began. Vendors began backing out, citing payment holds. Sabine went quiet. Guests who had RSVP'd started messaging me privately, unsure of what to believe. So I posted. Just one photo, a flat lay of contracts, receipts, and a copy of the trust letter. Caption, "Sometimes love speaks in boundaries, not silence, not sacrifice." Within hours, messages flooded in, DMS emails. Even an old mentor commented, "Proud of you for not setting yourself on fire to keep others warm." I turned off notifications. That night, I sat by the window, the city humming in the background. Rain tapped the glass like applause from the universe. For the first time in years, I didn't feel reactive. I felt real. Dad had seen me. He hadn't left me wealth. He'd left me weight, the kind that finally balanced the scale. When Saturday arrived, it felt more like a quiet reckoning than a weekend. I didn't mark the date on any calendar, but my bones knew. My body knew. The air carried a hush, like the world itself was bracing for something unseen but inevitable. I skipped breakfast, just brewed coffee, stronger than usual, and sat by the window with the blinds cracked slightly open. Outside, kids were already chalking up sidewalks, and someone nearby was blasting classic rock from a garage. Normalcy had never looked more foreign. Inside, my phone buzzed endlessly. Missed calls, voicemails, messages. From Mom, "Fazia, this has gone too far. We need to talk." From Marina, "I'm trying here. You could at least acknowledge that." From Nathan's aunt, whom I hadn't spoken to in 2 years, "You're making a scene. Don't ruin this." But the one that hurt, quietly, piercingly, came from Illa, my cousin. "You used to be the one I looked up to." I didn't reply. Not yet. I took the thick folder off the shelf, my wedding archive as I had sarcastically labeled it. Inside, invoices, timelines, menus, layouts, a map of my invisibility. I pulled the receipts out one by one and laid them across the dining table, one for the string quartet, one for the seating chart designer, one for the dance floor lighting. I paused at the handwritten note I had included with the cake deposit, "For a day as sweet as your future." They had devoured the sweetness, but never once tasted the effort. Around noon, the doorbell rang. I froze. No one was supposed to visit. I crept toward the peephole and saw Noreen. She held a white paper bag and her shoulders sagged like she'd been standing there longer than she had. "I brought pastries," she said when I opened the door. We sat in silence at the kitchen island, tearing apart croissants and sipping ginger tea. "They're spiraling," she finally said. "I know." Sabine sent an emergency email to the florist and the DJ. "Nathan's dad's trying to cover the gaps last minute. They're bleeding cash now." "I bet that hurts." Noreen gave a half smile. "Not as much as being erased does." Her gaze met mine. Not pity, not concern, just shared clarity. "You think I did the right thing?" I asked. She didn't hesitate. "I think you finally did something for yourself. That matters more than right." Later that afternoon, I went for a walk. No destination, just motion. Every step felt like claiming ground I hadn't dared step on before. By the time I returned, the sun had dipped low and the sky was that bleeding orange color you only get for 5 minutes a day. The house was quiet, too quiet. It used to feel lonely. Now it just felt mine. Then, at 6:23 p.m., my laptop pinged. An email. Subject line, ceremony livestream link. It was from Marina. No greeting, no note, just a link. I stared at it. I didn't click. Instead, I picked up my phone and opened my voice recorder. I hadn't used it in months, but something compelled me. I hit record. "This is for me," I began, my voice even, because I need to remember what it felt like to finally not chase a seat at someone else's table. I built that table. I brought the chairs. I cooked the meal. And when it was time to eat, they locked the door. I paused. "You don't owe anyone attendance at your own erasure." "Stop." I saved the file. Labeled it, "When I Chose Me." Night settled. I made dinner, lemon risotto with a chilled glass of Pinot Grigio. I even lit a candle, because peace deserves ambiance. When the clock struck 8, I knew the ceremony had started. But I wasn't watching. I was living. Instead of watching them toast under rented chandeliers, I curled up on the couch with a book and let the wind outside whisper through the open window. The same wind that once carried voices of doubt now carried my calm. They said I ruined the wedding, but no one ever asked what it cost to fund a fairy tale while being cast as the villain. Before bed, I journaled. Just a few lines. "You did not ruin anything. You reclaimed everything." I tucked the journal away, turned off the lights, and lay in bed, the ceiling fan humming a low lullaby. Tomorrow would come. Let it. But tonight, I had finally drawn the line. And this time, I wasn't crossing it. Sunday morning crept in with a stillness that felt heavier than usual. No emails, no notifications, just the slow hush of a city not yet awake. I stood in my kitchen barefoot, tea steeping quietly, the scent of mint and something earthy rising with the steam. The events of the past week didn't scream anymore. They hummed, a low, dull vibration beneath my skin. I was halfway through folding the last dish towel when my phone lit up. A message from Illa, my cousin. Just 3 words. "They want to talk." No punctuation, no emojis, just enough to stir something ancient and tired in me. I didn't respond right away. I poured the tea, settled onto the couch, and let the silence stretch. Let them wait. For once. 10 minutes later, the Zoom link arrived. My thumb hovered over the screen. I didn't want confrontation. I didn't want validation. What I wanted was the truth. But I already had it. Still, curiosity is a strange beast. It doesn't ask permission. It just opens the door. I joined the call. Faces blinked onto the screen one by one like ghosts from an old family album. My mother appeared first, lips pursed and face tightly framed. Marina joined next, hair up, no makeup, a grim expression hiding behind polite tightness. Uncle Ray, Aunt Trina, even Nathan, sipping something from a ceramic mug as if this were just another Sunday debrief. No one said hello. My mother cleared her throat. "Fazia, sweetheart, we're just worried. You've always been the one we could count on. and this sudden change. It's not like you. It took all of my restraint not to laugh. I let her finish. Uncle Ray chimed in, squinting like he was searching for a rational explanation. It's not about the money. It's about the family. You blindsided us. I looked at the screen, then slowly unmuted my mic. Let's clear one thing up, I said evenly. I didn't cancel a wedding. I canceled my funding. You canceled me the moment you decided I was only good for my wallet. Marina flinched. My mother gasped softly. Nathan looked like he wanted to disappear. Marina finally spoke. You've always been jealous. You act like you support me, but every time something goes right for me, you make it about you. I stared at her audacity, at her willful ignorance, but I didn't raise my voice. I didn't beg. Jealousy, I echoed. Interesting. Because last I checked, jealousy doesn't write checks. It doesn't book venues or call florists or pay off caterers. It doesn't get thanked with silence. My mother leaned forward, her voice taking on that worn tone of diplomacy. Please don't ruin this for her, Fazia. She's under pressure. The whole family is. And I'm not? I asked. When has anyone here asked how I'm doing, what I need? When have I been anything more than the reliable fallback? The silence was suffocating. You don't get to erase someone and still expect their loyalty, I added, voice calm but clipped. I've been subsidizing your idea of unity, but you know what? Unity isn't silence. It's not sacrifice without recognition. It's not me being strategically invisible so someone else can feel important. I clicked leave meeting before they could respond. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I sat on the floor of my living room, wrapped in a blanket, tea gone cold beside me. The quiet wasn't uncomfortable anymore. It felt earned. By morning, my phone had 14 missed calls, 3 voicemails, 9 texts. I ignored them all, except one from Noreen. Whatever happens, I'm proud of you. It was the only message that mattered. Later that day, a small envelope arrived by courier. No return address. Inside, a letter from Marina. It was handwritten. That surprised me. Fazia, I don't know how to say this without sounding like I'm making excuses, but I need you to know, you're right. About all of it. I used you. I let others erase you because it was easier than confronting my own insecurities. I told myself you didn't mind because it made me feel less guilty. I told people you chose not to be involved because I couldn't admit that I had pushed you away. I'm sorry. If I could redo things, I would. But I can't. All I can do is say this. You were never invisible to me. You were the backbone. I just wasn't brave enough to say it out loud. I hope someday you'll forgive me. But even if you don't, thank you for finally teaching me what boundaries look like. Love, Marina. I read the letter twice, then folded it slowly. This wasn't a clean resolution. It wasn't redemption or restoration. It was an echo, soft, perhaps sincere, but faint. And yet, for the first time, the apology wasn't demanded. It was offered. And that made all the difference. The ballroom had gone silent, not the usual hush of anticipation before a grand entrance, but the kind of quiet that buzzes with confusion, fear, and disbelief. Sabine stood near the center of the room, her clipboard hanging limply at her side. The florist team had paused mid-arrangement, vases in hand. The head caterer whispered into a phone by the kitchen door. You didn't need to hear the words to know what they meant. Something was wrong. Back in my apartment, I sat at the edge of my couch, watching nothing. The TV was on, some baking competition playing quietly in the background, but my eyes were on the middle distance. My phone vibrated on the coffee table. First, Sabine, then the hotel manager, then Nathan. I didn't pick up. Marina finally called. The moment I saw her name flash across the screen, I stood and walked to the kitchen, letting it ring until it stopped. She tried again, then again. Finally, she texted, Foss, what did you do? Everything is falling apart. Please, call me. We can fix this. No, I thought. You can't fix this. Because for once, you can't manipulate your way out. There's no speech you can give. No role for me to play. I opened the window and let the late spring air into the room. A neighbor was watering her plants on the balcony across the way. A dog barked from below. Life was moving, and so was I. 10 minutes later, I got a new text. From Dad. I know we haven't talked much lately, but I'm proud of you. Just that. Nothing more. But it was enough to make something sharp loosen in my chest. The pain of recognition. The power of simple truth. I replied, "Thank you. That means more than you know." Then I turned off my phone. At the venue, panic had given way to damage control. Sabine was desperately calling replacement vendors, trying to piece together whatever she could from what remained. But without the final deposits, most teams had already packed up and driven off. The DJ never even arrived. The flowers were half placed, and the cake delivery had been halted mid-transit. One of the junior planners cried openly as she helped box up the unused centerpieces. Marina was in the bridal suite, pacing, mascara streaked, hair half-curled. The photographer had nothing to shoot. Nathan's parents were furious. His mother demanded to know what happened. His father was on the phone with the hotel trying to recoup costs. Guests were still arriving, unaware. Smiles faded quickly as they entered a room half-decorated and fully tense. Someone tried to play music from a phone through a Bluetooth speaker. It buzzed, then died. A metaphor, if ever there was one. Meanwhile, I made tea. Nothing fancy, just chamomile and honey. I sat at my kitchen table and pulled out the yellow legal pad again, the same one from days earlier. This time I flipped it to a fresh page. At the top I wrote, "What I will no longer do." The list came quickly. Explain my boundaries, justify my kindness, pay to be tolerated, stay to be diminished, forgive without acknowledgement. I didn't need more than 5 lines. I stared at them, breathing in the simplicity of my own clarity. This wasn't about revenge, it was about relief. Back at the hotel, Marina finally emerged. She walked into the main ballroom, shoes in hand, lips tight. When she spoke, it was to no one and everyone. "We're postponing. Details to come. Thanks for understanding." A murmur rolled through the crowd. A few guests nodded. Others stared in silence. The pianist who had been booked for cocktail hour never played a note. One by one, people left. I imagined it all. Every detail. Not with joy, but with justice. I had carried this family on my back. Now they felt what it was like to stand without my scaffolding. That night, I took myself to dinner. A little bistro not far from my place. Nothing extravagant, but warm and intimate. The hostess seated me near the window. The server smiled and asked, "Celebrating something tonight?" "Closure," I said. She laughed softly. "That's my favorite kind." I ordered a glass of wine, a steak medium rare, and crème brûlée for dessert. Every bite felt earned, every sip, a reminder that peace can taste like liberation. At the table beside me, a couple argued softly about vacation plans. Across the room, a birthday group toasted someone turning 30. Life moved. People argued, laughed, tasted, touched. And I sat there, untouched by the chaos I had finally stepped out of. As I paid the bill, I thought, this is what taking your power back looks like. It isn't loud. It doesn't need applause. It just needs a door that finally stays shut. By the time Sunday rolled around, the house felt unfamiliar, like I'd stepped into a version of my life that no longer fit. I moved slower that morning, not because I was tired, but because I was steady. Intention had replaced adrenaline. Every action now felt like a decision, not a reaction. I folded laundry at the kitchen island, whites in one basket, colors in another. The towel in my hands was still warm from the dryer, soft from too many washes. In the background, my phone buzzed. Another notification. I didn't check. I already knew it was about the wedding, or what used to be a wedding. The calls had stopped after the Zoom explosion. Texts kept coming, some pleading, some passive-aggressive, and some just performative concern. I hadn't responded to any. What was left to say? Apologies that came only after consequences never felt sincere. At 10:17 a.m., I got up and went to my home office. The soft tapping of my bare feet against the hardwood echoed louder than expected. I sat at my desk, pulled out the copy of my grandmother's old photo album, a habit lately. As I flipped through the yellowing pages, I landed on a black and white picture of her, standing beside her first sewing machine. She had that look in her eyes, that mix of weariness and quiet resolve, the kind that said, "You won't break me twice." That was the kind of woman I wanted to be remembered as. I wasn't crying, not even close. The ache inside had calcified into clarity. For too long, I'd built peace on my own back, smiled through the burn, paid for the party I wasn't invited to. They thought silence was surrender. They mistook my boundaries as betrayal. It was nearly noon when Noreen texted, "Brunch? You need air." She wasn't wrong. We met at a small place tucked behind a bookstore, my kind of hidden haven. She was already seated when I arrived, stirring sugar into her coffee like it owed her answers. "You look different," she said without preamble. "I feel different. You slept?" "Finally." The waitress came by and we ordered something simple: scrambled eggs, toast, grapefruit juice, comfort food, nourishment without the noise. Noreen reached across the table and tapped her nail against my mug. "So, what now? You walk away and that's it?" I thought about that for a moment. I walk away, and that's the beginning. She nodded slowly. "You know they'll rewrite the story, right? In their heads?" "They already have, but I've got the receipts, literal and emotional." She smiled, half proud, half sad. "Does it feel like revenge yet?" I shook my head. It feels like freedom. As we ate, the noise of the city returned. People laughed too loudly. A baby cried 2 tables over, someone dropped a plate, and the crash broke through our moment. But it didn't pull me back. I stayed right where I was, in control, in my own story. After brunch, I took a walk alone down South Congress. The shops were buzzing. A saxophonist played near the corner, his melody sweet and bluesy. I paused to listen, dropped a $5 bill in his case. He nodded. I nodded back. Half a block down, I passed a boutique with a display sign in the window, "Reclaim what you gave away." My reflection caught in the glass. It wasn't just the words. It was the timing. The universe didn't always shout. Sometimes it whispered right when you needed it most. When I returned home that afternoon, a package was waiting by the door. No return label. Inside was a wedding favor box, unopened, a tiny jar of artisanal honey and a note, "Thank you for making this possible." No signature, no name, just another breadcrumb in the trail of token gestures. I tossed it in the drawer with the rest, not out of malice but because I no longer needed symbolic scraps. I was looking for substance now. That evening I sat down to write again. Not an email, not a check, just words for me. "You are not difficult, you are just no longer easy to use." I wrote it 3 times, then once more. I printed it, folded the page, and tucked it behind the photo of my grandmother. She'd understand. Before bed, I opened the group chat, just long enough to mute it permanently. And then I did something I hadn't done in years. I danced. In my kitchen, barefoot, arms loose and laughing, alone, but not lonely. Never that again. The morning after the financial halt, I didn't expect peace, but I didn't expect the silence to feel like clarity either. No emails, no calls, just the hum of an old ceiling fan, the chirp of a mourning dove, and a breeze that snuck through the cracks of my kitchen window like it belonged there. I made coffee and didn't rush to check my phone. That alone felt like rebellion. The mug warmed my hands, but it was the stillness I drank in first, a different kind of warmth, one that didn't cost me anything. Later that day, I opened my laptop not to review contracts, but to book a weekend retreat. No spa, no influencers. Just a modest guest cabin tucked into the edge of hill country with creaky floorboards and a screened-in porch. Somewhere I could hear my own thoughts echo back, not be drowned by expectation. On the drive out of Austin, the traffic thinned by the mile. The further I got, the lighter my chest felt. No more rehearsal dinners, no texts about centerpieces, no looming deadlines that weren't mine. Just me, the road, and a playlist I hadn't touched in years. One song after another felt like a time capsule. My life before I became the family fixer. The cabin was exactly what I needed. Worn, wooden, honest, a little drafty, but real. I unpacked slowly, letting each item settle like I was resetting the rhythm of my own life. That night, I lit a candle and sat on the porch. No one asked me to take notes. No one needed a deposit. The silence didn't feel empty. It felt earned. Midway through the second day, my phone buzzed. I stared at the name on the screen. Mom. I let it ring. But then, curiosity won. I tapped the voicemail. Fazia, I don't know where you are. You're not answering. Marina's, well, she's distraught. The guests are asking questions. Nathan's parents are furious. But I suppose that's not your problem anymore. You made your point. I hope you're proud. She didn't ask how I was. She didn't apologize. Just another line in a long script I'd memorized. I closed my eyes and let the voicemail evaporate into the evening air. Proud? Maybe not. But present. And that was enough. That night, I wrote a letter. Not to send, not even to finish, just to release. It began, Dear Fazia, and for once, I let the words fall out like breath I'd held too long. You were never the villain. You just got tired of being the hero no one thanked. On the third morning, something unexpected happened. A knock on the cabin door. I opened it to find Noreen, holding a tote bag, her smile tired but knowing. I figured you'd be here. Your Spotify gave you away. I laughed, the first real laugh in weeks. You tracked me through music? She stepped in and shrugged. You played the Erykah Badu playlist. You only do that when you're about to burn it all down or rebuild. Figured it was the second one. We spent the afternoon on the porch, drinking tea and not talking about Marina. Instead, we talked about us. Our dreams at 20. The job offer I once turned down in DC. The last time I painted something for fun. Life before performance. At one point, Noreen looked at me and said, You know, you're not responsible for other people's comfort, especially when it costs you your clarity. It hit hard, not because it was new, but because it finally made sense. That night, after Noreen left, I sat with a notebook under the stars and wrote one line. Boundaries aren't walls, they're doors you choose when to open. Then I made a list. Not of people I needed to cut off, but of who I wanted to become now that I wasn't weighed down. I didn't want revenge. I didn't need recognition. I wanted release. The next day, I got an email from Sabine. Hi Fazia, just confirming that all vendors have acknowledged the cancellations. While several were disappointed, they understand. There were some rumors, but I've kept the messaging professional. Please advise if there's anything else you'd like managed. I replied simply, Thank you. That's all for now. Afterward, I packed up, not in a hurry. I walked through the cabin slowly, brushing my hand along the doorframe like I was saying goodbye to a version of me that had lived here these past few days. On the way back to the city, I stopped at an old bookstore, picked up a used journal and a novel with a cracked spine. No wedding magazines, no planning guides, just stories I chose for myself. When I got home, I found a letter on my doorstep, handwritten, from Marina. I didn't open it, not yet. I left it on the kitchen counter, next to the candle I had forgotten to blow out. Because some things can wait, especially apologies that come only after the damage is visible. That evening I sat by the window, watching the sky turn a shade of violet only spring evenings know how to make. The breeze carried no demands, and for once, neither did I. The Denver sky was soft with overcast, the kind that doesn't threaten rain but wraps the world in a gentle gray. I stood on the rooftop terrace of the boutique hotel, a steaming cup of coffee in my hands, watching the city breathe beneath me. It had been 2 weeks since the wedding that wasn't. 2 weeks since I turned down the final plea, set down my burden, and let the structure I had held up for years finally collapse under its own weight. And not once, in those quiet days since, had I questioned if I did the right thing. Healing, I learned, doesn't roar. It doesn't demand grand declarations or cinematic revenge. Sometimes it whispers in moments you almost miss, the way your chest doesn't tighten when a notification buzzes, the way food tastes again, the way laughter finds its way back into your voice. I had booked this time for myself. No family, no phone calls, no guilt. Just me, rediscovering what it felt like to be whole without being needed. I walked neighborhoods I didn't know, sat in quiet cafes with books that didn't teach me how to fix anything. I breathed without an agenda. One morning, I visited the Denver Art Museum, a place I hadn't planned on. In one gallery, a modern sculpture caught my eye, twisted iron beams layered with broken glass, welded with words etched across the surface. "You are allowed to take up space." I stared at that piece for a long time. Maybe that was the lesson buried in all this. Not that family would always understand you, not that love guaranteed respect, but that your space, your voice, your presence, your worth, was not up for negotiation. I thought about the younger version of myself, the girl who learned early to stay quiet so others could shine, who believed being the dependable one meant she didn't need affirmation. I wanted to go back and whisper to her, "You don't have to earn love by being convenient." Back at the hotel, I drafted a message, not to Marina, not to Mom, to myself. "You are not a footnote in your own story." I saved it in my notes app and made it my lock screen. Every time I opened my phone, I'd remember. On my last night in Denver, I dined alone on the hotel's rooftop patio. A soft jazz trio played near the bar. The air was cool but not cold. I ordered salmon, sipped wine slowly, and watched a group of women laugh over cocktails near the fireplace. One of them caught my eye, smiled warmly, and raised her glass. To what, I didn't know, but I lifted mine too, a silent toast to beginnings not defined by endings. When I returned to Austin, it was with no ceremony. My house was just as I'd left it, quiet, undisturbed, loyal in its stillness. I unpacked, watered my plants, and opened the windows. The air smelled like summer teasing spring. There were messages, of course, emails, missed calls, a few vague texts from extended family feigning concern. None from Marina, not directly, but I saw she had updated her Instagram bio. No more wedding date. Just a quote. "Some stories aren't meant to be told." She wasn't wrong. Some stories aren't meant to be told by the people who never understood them. I resumed work. I took calls from clients. I set boundaries with time, with energy, with people. And surprisingly, they held. Life didn't fall apart. It didn't even hiccup. It flowed around my choice like water finds new paths. One afternoon, I ran into Noreen at a bookstore. She hugged me tighter than she ever had and said, "You look lighter." "I am," I replied. She asked if I wanted to get coffee, and I said yes. Not because I needed distraction, but because I wanted connection. The difference mattered. We talked for hours. About everything. About nothing. At one point she asked, "Do you regret it? The wedding? Cutting ties like that?" I paused, then shook my head. Number. Because it was never just about the wedding. It was about remembering I exist. Noreen nodded like she understood, and she did. That was the beauty of real friends. They don't need you to shrink for them to feel big. Weeks passed, then months. Marina didn't reach out, neither did Mom, but Illa sent me a postcard from Santa Fe. "Proud of you, for real this time." It made me smile. Sometimes love doesn't look like a phone call. Sometimes it's a sentence on the back of a watercolor desert. And that's enough. In the end, I learned the power of absence, not as punishment, but as truth. Walking away isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it's dignified, a quiet reclaiming. I hadn't just canceled a wedding. I had canceled the lie that said love means silence, that sacrifice is the same as loyalty. And now, I live softer, but not smaller. My home is filled with music I love, not requests I resent. My calendar has white space. My life, color. To anyone listening, wondering if it's okay to walk away from roles that diminish you, it is. To anyone fearing that silence means failure, it doesn't. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stop talking and start listening to the part of you that's tired of apologizing for existing. And if you ever find yourself funding a celebration you're not invited to, emotionally, financially, spiritually, pause. Ask yourself, am I being loved or just used? And if the answer is the latter, know this. You are allowed to take up space. You are allowed to walk. You are allowed to begin again. If this story touched you, subscribe to Secret Revenge, because some revenge needs no knives, no screaming, just one spotlight, one shining nameplate, and someone they once dismissed, rising, brilliant and unshaken. See you in the next story.